home from burying her mother. The house was quiet in the way that houses become quiet when something irreversible has already been done inside them. She walked into the bedroom where her mother's jewelry box had sat for 23 years on the same dresser, in the same corner, beside the same small photograph. The box was gone. Not moved. Not misplaced. Gone. And something else was gone with it, something she would not be able to name for a very long time. Her name was Claire. She was 31 years old when her mother died of ovarian cancer 11 months after the first diagnosis, almost to the day. Her father had remarried 8 years earlier. The stepmother, a woman named Diane, had always been polite in the way that calculated people are polite, consistently. And only when it cost her nothing. Claire had grown up reading the edges of that politeness. There was always a surface warmth, and aversion beneath it, one that watched, measured, and waited. Her mother's jewelry collection had been assembled across 23 years of ordinary life. A pearl necklace passed down from her own mother. A gold bracelet engraved with Claire's birth date. A pair of small silver earrings shaped like crescent moons worn to Claire's college graduation and never removed for photographs. Claire had watched her mother wear each piece hundreds of times. She knew the weight of them. None of it was expensive. All of it was irreplaceable. While Claire stood at the graveside, Diane was inside the house, alone, and she had not been idle. The bags had been prepared in advance. Claire would learn this later, that Diane had folded the jewelry into white kitchen bags, the kind kept under the sink. Knotted at the top. The kind used for garbage. Claire called her father that evening. He said he had not known. He said Diane had been clearing space. He used the phrase 3 times in a single sentence, as if repetition could transform an excuse into a reason. She understood she was not supposed to ask questions. She found the receipt 3 weeks later. It was crumpled in the pocket of one of Diane's jackets, the one Claire had washed as a gesture of goodwill. The receipt was time-stamped 9:47 a.m. Claire had been standing at the graveside at 9:47 a.m. The drop-off was itemized, 11 pieces. Valued at 0, the word 0 stayed with her. She did not cry that day. She did not confront anyone. She drove home in silence. She sat in her car outside the Goodwill location for 47 minutes, watching people move in and out through the glass doors, wondering if her mother's crescent moon earrings were already on someone else. The house had not been broken into. The key had simply been used. No rule had technically been violated. And that, Claire would slowly come to understand, was not an accident. It was architecture. The unraveling had been designed to look like ordinary housekeeping, quiet enough, for long enough that no single act could ever stand on its own. And that's when everything changed, not as explosion or rupture, but in the slower, more unsettling way that understanding reshapes a person when it arrives too late to undo what was done. Diane had done this before. There were other things: photographs, handwritten letters, small keepsakes that had quietly disappeared from Claire's life over 8 years. She simply had not known what she was looking at. Silence. The pattern had a name. The erosion had been deliberate. The anatomy. The first psychological concept is proxy control. Proxy control describes the use of physical space and symbolic objects as a means of establishing dominance without confrontation, without argument, without leaving traceable evidence of intent. Diane had not needed to challenge Claire directly. She had only needed to wait for an absence and act inside it. The funeral was not a moment of opportunity. It was a moment that had been anticipated. The second concept is covert narcissism. Where overt narcissism performs and demands recognition, covert narcissism conceals itself inside helpfulness, modesty, and plausible deniability. It presents as clearing space, as an innocent oversight, as a misunderstanding that can never quite be proven. The receipt time-stamped 9:47 a.m. was not carelessness, it was a signature. Claire consulted a family attorney that same week. He was thorough and kind. He explained that donated personal property once transferred to a third party is legally unretrievable absent very specific fraud circumstances. He said this gently. He said it more than once. For a moment, it seemed the story had simply ended there. It had not. She stopped trying to recover what was gone. That decision arrived quietly a Tuesday morning in November, 3 months after the funeral. Not from surrender. From a recognition that the search for the objects was preventing her from sitting with what the objects had once held. The particular weight of a woman's life, lived carefully. Over time, Claire began to write instead. She documented every piece she could remember. The pearl necklace, the engraved bracelet, the coral ring worn on the right hand every single day for 14 years, the crescent moon earrings silver, small enough to rest in a closed palm. She wrote one item per page in a black notebook, from memory alone. She also called the Goodwill location. 3 times. On the third call, a volunteer told her that a woman matching Diane's description had returned to the store the morning after the drop-off before it opened, and had removed several items from the donation bin. That the crescent moon earrings had not been donated at all. That Diane had kept them. The notebook remained incomplete. She did not confront Diane. She filed a narrow civil complaint, documented, precise and quiet, not for the jewelry. For the record, she also wrote a letter she never sent. She folded it once and placed it in the black notebook. Between the entry for the bracelet and the entry for the earrings, it sits there still. None of it was accidental, not the timing, not the kitchen bags folded and knotted before the service had ended, not the receipt tucked into a jacket pocket. The hollow quality of what Claire came home to that had been constructed, carefully, across years she had not been permitted to see clearly. She is anchored now. Not by resolution. By understanding. Some cruelty does not arrive as confrontation. It arrives as housekeeping, as helpfulness, as the quiet rearranging of a dead woman's things while her daughter stands at the grave. The pattern is always the same. The absence is the point. What was taken was not jewelry. It was the last physical evidence of a woman who had existed specifically, particularly, irreplaceably, and who could no longer speak for herself. The things people take are never only things.